I had been married to Kathy for over 30 years. We met when we were young, full of dreams, and eager to build a life together. I was 59 now, and she was 55. We had 3 wonderful children who had grown into responsible adults, and through the years, Kathy had meant the world to me. Our marriage, like any other, had its highs and lows, but through it all, we had always stood by each other. Kathy had a group of friends who were deeply involved in feminism, identity politics, and social justice. While I respected that everyone had their own beliefs, I personally didn't put much weight on those ideas. To me, they often seemed exaggerated or even unnecessary. Kathy, however, had grown increasingly passionate about them, believing that women had endured centuries of oppression. She hadn't personally faced any discrimination in her life, yet these discussions had started taking a central role in her thoughts. At times, her fervor scared me. I found the arguments unsettling and often tried to steer our conversations toward lighter topics. I had seen similar women on TV, shouting aggressively and pushing their views with what I felt was little logic. It worried me that Kathy was being influenced by them. One evening, out of the blue, she confided in me that she felt our marriage had become dull. The weight of her words hit me like a cold wave. I suggested we try therapy, work on rekindling the spark, maybe even take a trip together. Anything to bring us back to the love we once shared. But Kathy had a different idea. She wanted to go on a solo vacation. Hesitantly, I agreed, believing that maybe some time away would help her find clarity. A week later, when she returned, something was different. Her hair was cut short, her demeanor was distant, and there was an unfamiliar air about her, as if she had transformed into someone else entirely. She didn't embrace me, didn't show the warmth I had been longing for. It felt as if I was looking at a stranger rather than the woman I had loved for 3 decades. From that moment on, Kathy grew more engrossed in her new lifestyle. She spent more time with her friends, participated in protests I didn't support, and became deeply involved in activism. I tried to talk to her, to voice my concerns, but she wouldn't listen. The turning point came when she was detained during a demonstration that had disrupted traffic. When I picked her up from the police station, she remained eerily silent, as if nothing had happened. Soon after, she discovered TikTok, using it as a platform to spread her feminist beliefs. She gained a decent following, and I watched as she poured hours into crafting her videos, dressing up, and perfecting her content. It was consuming her. One evening, while scrolling online, I stumbled upon one of her videos. As I watched, my heart sank. She smiled into the camera, her voice filled with conviction. "Good morning. Do you want to become one of those miserable older women? You know, the ones who nag their husbands, complain about everything, and seem eternally unhappy? None of us want that, right? But it happens. We dedicate our lives to raising families, working tirelessly, and then suddenly, in our 50s or 60s, we realize we have nothing for ourselves. We feel trapped. Even if we have good marriages, we can still be unhappy. But here's the thing, we don't need to stay stuck. We can create our own lives, explore the world, and find fulfillment beyond our husbands and children. Life is short. If this was our last year, would we want to spend it the way we are now? I doubt it. It's time for women to break free and truly live." The message hit me like a ton of bricks. It felt as if she was encouraging women to abandon their marriages, to leave behind the lives they had built. That night, when she came home, I confronted her. To my utter shock, she didn't argue. She simply told me she was leaving. She had already packed her bags. She looked me in the eyes, unflinching. "I'm bored. I want freedom and happiness. I don't want to be tied down as a grandmother, a wife, or anyone's responsibility. I need to experience life outside this prison." Her words cut deep, but I didn't try to stop her. Instead, I swallowed my pain and told her I would miss her. I hoped she would return when she realized what she was leaving behind. At first, I believed it was just a phase. Our children thought so too. But my hope was shattered when divorce papers arrived at my door. She had planned it all along. My calls went unanswered, and when my children tried to talk her out of it, she dismissed them just as she had dismissed me. A few weeks later, it was official. After 30 years, I was single. The very next day, Kathy posted a video. She sat on a new bed, her eyes gleaming. Well, I did it. Here I am in my new apartment. It rained while I was moving in, but today I woke up feeling different. Free. Like a weight has been lifted off me. I'm excited for the first time in years. My place is still a mess, but I don't care. And guess what? My very handsome boyfriend is making dinner for me. Life is good. I watched in silence, my heart pounding. The woman I had loved, the woman I had built a life with, had not only left but had already moved on. My home was broken, and now so was my heart. It took time, but I eventually moved on too. I met Maya, a beautiful and kind-hearted high school teacher in her early 40s. We connected instantly, and for the first time in a long time, I felt happiness returning to my life. We grew close, and soon I decided to introduce her to my children. Maya, thoughtful as always, suggested I invite Kathy as well. "She should know that you've moved on," she said gently. I hesitated, but eventually called Kathy to invite her on a boat trip I had planned with my kids and Maya. She declined at first, but later, after a conversation with our daughter, she agreed. The day of the trip arrived, and one by one, everyone joined me on the boat. Kathy was the last to arrive. She came alone. As the boat glided over the calm waters, I introduced Kathy to Maya. There was a sense of satisfaction in my voice as I told her how happy I was with this new chapter of my life. I wish I had captured that exact moment. Kathy's face turned red, her expression frozen between shock and disbelief. She hadn't expected me to move on, to find happiness without her. It was evident that in her mind, I was supposed to remain stuck in the past, waiting for her to return. But that wasn't my reality. Throughout the trip, I could see Kathy's discomfort as she watched Maya and me together. While Maya had pure intentions in inviting her, I couldn't help but find amusement in Kathy's thinly veiled disgust. It was ironic. She had been the one who left in search of freedom and joy, yet here she was clearly bothered by the fact that I had moved forward with my life. A few days later, another video of Kathy surfaced. Her usual confident demeanor was replaced by something else, regret, perhaps, or confusion. Her voice was subdued as she spoke. "The last few days have been incredibly traumatizing for me, and though I know it's not entirely my fault, I can't help but blame myself. I knew deep down that I would have a strong reaction upon finding out my ex-husband was in a new relationship. We've been separated for a year, but we still spent time together as a family, and he had reassured me countless times that he wasn't seeing anyone else. But it turns out he was. I debated whether I should even go on that trip, but my daughter convinced me. She said he might never invite me again. Looking back, I can see why she thought that. What hurt me the most wasn't that he had someone new, I have a boyfriend too, but that he didn't tell me. I felt safe around him, believing that on some level, he still loved me. He even invited me on this trip with our daughters, and I accepted, thinking we were still connected in some way. But during the trip, I discovered some messages that shattered my illusion. It was horrifying. The trauma that followed was intense. I had a physical and emotional breakdown, completely losing control of my emotions. I felt like I was drowning in something I couldn't escape. Her words didn't move me. She wasn't upset about losing me. She was upset about losing the stability I had always provided. Kathy had chosen to leave, believing she would find something better. Yet now she found herself shaken by the reality she had created. The real wound wasn't that I had a new partner. It was that I had chosen to love again, to invest in someone else emotionally and financially. That was something her so-called boyfriend would never do for her. Shortly after, she started calling me, over and over again. Her voice, once full of certainty, was now heavy with regret. She reminded me that I had once asked her to come back. She wanted to revisit that moment, to use it as a doorway back into my life. But my response was simple. "It's too late, Kathy. That boat has sailed. You made your choices, and now you have to live with them." Days passed, and yet another video appeared. This time, Kathy looked lost, as if she no longer recognized the life she had carved out for herself. I keep thinking about how things used to be, back when everything felt right. Maybe this is all my fault. Maybe I was selfish. I thought I wanted something different, but now I find myself struggling with the fakeness of it all. The constant pretending that I'm fine. I remember the good times now. The bad parts? They don't seem as real anymore. I was invited to dinner tonight by a woman I've grown close to. She and her family welcomed me, and I even brought gifts for their children. But as I sat there, surrounded by a family that wasn't mine, I couldn't ignore the aching in my chest. I miss my family. I miss being a family. Maybe it's better to stay miserable if it means keeping the ones you love close. Because without them, I don't know who I am anymore. I'm not crying because I've been drinking. I'm crying because this is hard. I hope you're all having a happy Saturday. I'll probably be okay later, but right now, it feels like everything I ever knew is gone. My family isn't together anymore, even though they're still physically here. My daughter called me after seeing the video. There was sadness in her voice, but also clarity. She chose this, Dad. We all tried to stop her, but she wouldn't listen. She wanted freedom. Well, now she has it. I agreed with her. Kathy had gotten exactly what she wanted. And now she had to live with that reality. Days later, yet another video surfaced. Kathy sat in front of the camera, her eyes distant, her voice laced with something close to desperation. Good morning. Sometimes I wonder why I made the choices I did. Last night, I had a dream about my ex-husband. He was hurt, crying, and needed my help. In my dream, I suggested moving back in to take care of him. And for a moment, it felt like we were starting over, like things were the way they used to be. But it was just a dream. I know now that I'll always love him, but things are different. Sometimes I get angry and wonder, why doesn't he believe that I deserve my fair share? Yes, he's offered me some money, but it's not enough. I played a significant role in our life together. My parents helped us financially when we struggled. I supported him through difficult times. And yet, here I am, struggling to find a decent place to live while he thrives. People, especially men, think women don't deserve anything. That we should fend for ourselves after dedicating decades to a marriage. I feel undervalued, like I have no worth. And it's hard. I watched her words with disbelief. She had received her fair share in the divorce settlement. Everything had been done by the book. And now, she was trying to rewrite history, to make herself the victim of a tragedy she had authored. For a moment, I wanted to retaliate, to take legal action against her for spreading false narratives. But Maya, ever the voice of reason, stopped me. Ignore her, she said gently. She's drowning in the consequences of her own choices. You don't need to be the one to punish her. Life is already doing that for you. My children, however, weren't as patient. They called Kathy, issuing an ultimatum, apologize for her baseless accusations, or risk being cut off from everyone. Backed into a corner, Kathy had no choice. She released another video, a weak attempt at an apology, citing her mental health as the reason for her words. It was clear she didn't truly regret what she had said, only that she had been called out for it. But by then it no longer mattered. A few days later, I married Maya in a beautiful, intimate ceremony. I didn't invite Kathy. There was no reason to. As the final step in moving on, I unfollowed her on every social media platform. I had no desire to see her anymore, no need to witness her unraveling. She had chosen her path, and I had chosen mine. And this time there was no going back.